Sorry, this table's for family only. My brother smirked, sticking me by the trash. Everyone laughed, until the 3,200 bill came and the waiter turned to me. I smiled and said, "Not my table." "Hey there, I'm Eli, and although I'm 34 years old, it feels like I've always been slotted into the role of the responsible sibling. Not to say I was ever the favorite, the rebel, or the golden child. I just did what I was supposed to do. You know, turn up on time, handle my bills, and not forget anyone's birthday. I've got a job in finance, live alone, and I'm not one to make a big deal out of things. My family? Well, they're a lively bunch, tightly knit in that kind of showy way, papering over any real issues like they're not even there. I've always felt like I'm on the outskirts, involved but never quite welcomed. The guy you invite to weddings but then forget to include in the group photos. Growing up, Mason, my brother, was the one everyone adored. He was charming, a bit of a risk-taker, and constantly getting into scrapes, but somehow always landed on his feet. My parents adored him, even when he dropped out of college, flitted between jobs, and eventually moved back in at 28. They championed him like he was the next great genius. Meanwhile, I covered my school expenses, kept the same job for over 10 years, and even helped with the mortgage when Dad's work hours got cut. It didn't seem to count for much, at least not enough to get me any real acknowledgement from the family. I convinced myself it didn't matter, so I kept plugging away, sending cash, replying to texts, turning up for family holidays with a smile, and shrugging off the jabs disguised as jokes. "Eli, loosen up a little. It's just a party." "Oh, we thought you'd be busy with work." Yep, just rolled with it. A part of me hoped that if I kept being there, eventually I'd truly be part of the family, not just the financier lurking in the background. But that illusion was shattered last fall. It began with a dinner. Mason was newly engaged to this woman named Brooke, whom my mom already adored. To celebrate, they planned a big dinner at a fancy rooftop spot downtown, way out of their usual price range, which I now realize should have been a red flag. A few weeks prior, my mom called. "Eli, sweetheart," she said in that sugary tone she reserves for when she wants something. "We'd love for you to come to Mason and Brooke's engagement dinner. It'll be a magical evening." Naturally, I agreed without hesitation and asked for the details. Then she added, lowering her voice, that they hoped I might step in with the reservation. "Just to hold it, we'll pay you back." Yeah, right. "We'll pay you back," translated to me never seeing that money again. But as usual, I said yes. I got in touch with the restaurant, secured a private space for 20 people, and put down my card for the deposit. I didn't mind, really. It was Mason's night. I thought maybe this time I'd feel part of it all. I showed up at the dinner right at 7 o'clock, suited up in a dark navy suit with a crisp shirt and some new cufflinks I'd been saving. I came with a fancy bottle of champagne for the couple and a custom card with their initials. Upon arriving at the rooftop, the hostess gave me a nod towards the private area. With a deep breath, I walked in. The setup was stunning. String lights, flower centerpieces, a smooth jazz band off to one side, and there they all were. My family, Mason, Brooke, and her family, a mix of friends. Everyone was holding drinks, laughing, chatting, clinking glasses. I walked over, expecting at least a hello. Instead, Mason glanced at me with that familiar smug grin. "Oh, hey," he said, barely noting the champagne. "Glad you made it." Then he pointed to a folding chair off to the side near a trash can. "Sorry, this table's for family only," he added with feigned sympathy. "But there's a spot for you over there." I was genuinely taken aback. I glanced at Mom, who gave me that tight smile that says she's not getting involved. Dad chuckled awkwardly and lifted his glass. Brooke didn't even look up, and a few others giggled right on cue. I stood there a moment too long, wanting to say something, but the words wouldn't come. My ears were burning. I felt like a kid left out of the group photo at a relative's wedding because I didn't fit in. So, I took my place at the chair, put down the champagne, and just sat there. Didn't even bother to take my coat off. A waiter came over, asked if I was with the party. I nodded silently. He didn't say more, just handed me a glass of water and moved on. So I sat for close to 2 hours while they laughed, toasted, and exchanged gifts. I watched Mason give a speech about being lucky to be surrounded by his nearest and dearest. I watched Mom tear up when Brooke praised her as the best future mother-in-law ever. No one asked if I wanted anything from the menu. Dessert came, an elaborate multi-layered cake with edible gold bits. The band played a slow tune, and the sun slipped beneath the horizon. No one even glanced my way for a good half hour. Then the waiter approached with the check, a small leather folder. He stopped, looked around, then glanced at the credit card information. Mine. He took a few steps toward me. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly. "The total for the event is 3,000 dong. Should I use the same card for the final amount?" Everyone turned to stare. Mason raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah," he said carelessly. "Eli's got it." The waiter looked at me, and I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. My voice is calm and steady. So there I was, standing just a little bit away from this table, raising my voice just enough so everyone could hear. "Hey, not my table," I pointed out. I had been told this spot was reserved for family only. Suddenly, this awkward silence filled the room, like the air had been sliced in half. My brother had this stunned look, mouth slightly open. Mom looked at me all puzzled, with a little frown on her face. Dad straightened up, trying to get a read on the situation. Brooke's dad shot me a confused look, and the waiter just stood there hesitantly. "Sir," the waiter reminded me, "you made the reservation." I nodded. "Yeah, I did, and I paid the deposit too. But I'm not with that group. I'm hanging out at the side table," I said, while slowly standing and grabbing my coat. I even gestured at the trash can, hinting that it was apparently where I belonged. You could just feel everyone's surprise, like their jaws collectively dropped. For a moment, it was like time froze. The waiter looked kind of stuck, holding the bill awkwardly, like it was something radioactive. My brother had the expression of someone who had just been slapped with a fish, while my mom's eyes darted between me and the bill, trying to figure out how things had spiraled so quickly. "Eli, wait," she called out softly, her voice shaky. "What are you doing?" I shrugged. "Just following the seating plan, Mom. Mason mentioned the table was for family only, so I figured that meant I wasn't included." I turned to the waiter. "Look, I didn't eat, I didn't drink, I wasn't welcomed, so I'm not paying." "Don't be ridiculous," Mason snapped, with some smirk that was turning ugly. "It's just a joke, man. Chill out. You always take things so seriously." The room got even quieter. Even the jazz band seemed to taper off awkwardly. All eyes were locked on me, but for the first time in forever, I wasn't shrinking under the pressure. "Yeah," I said slowly. "That's the whole issue. You think everything's a joke so long as someone else's expense is the punchline." Brooke seemed confused, just starting to realize that something serious was going down. Her dad, this stiff figure in a blazer who had barely spoken the entire evening, gave Mason a pointed look. "You invited this man to your engagement dinner and sat him next to a trash can?" he asked incredulously. Mason scoffed, looking towards Mom for backup. She straightened up, trying to maintain her composure. "Oh, let's not make a big deal out of this. Eli's just being dramatic. He's always been sensitive." I almost chuckled. That was her usual line, that I was just sensitive or tired or overreacting, anything to avoid admitting something hurtful had happened, and they let it slide. The waiter cleared his throat. "I'm sorry to intrude again, but we need to settle the bill before closing the tab on the private space. If the card on file won't be used, I'll need another one." Silence fell over the room. I turned and headed towards the elevator, and that's when my dad finally broke his silence. "Eli, come on! You already paid for half. Might as well finish it. I stopped dead in my tracks. That statement was like a snap, breaking something in me. You're right, Dad, I responded. I did pay the deposit. I even called 3 different places to find one with a rooftop view like Mason wanted, picked the date around his football games, ordered special floral arrangements because Mom said fake flowers would look lousy in the pictures. I forked over a $500 deposit without even thinking and showed up on time, all dressed up to support my brother. I took a step closer, lowering my voice just enough to ensure it wasn't missed. And what did I get for all that? A folding chair next to a trash can and a nice family-only comment? Now it's up to you and your real family to figure it out. Mason's face was flushed, redness creeping up his neck. He stood, trying to look tough, but it just seemed silly. You're making a scene, he insisted. No, I said calmly. I'm drawing a line. And walked away. Didn't even bother with the elevator. Took the stairs, every step filled with adrenaline and a sort of disbelief that I'd actually stood up for myself. Outside, the night air hit me hard, sharp, and refreshing. I loosened my tie and just kept walking. Didn't know where I was heading, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. A bold exit, some awkward apologies later, maybe even a little attempt to sweep everything under the rug. But I seriously underestimated just how far-reaching the repercussions would be. Because that night, after I had gotten home, still in my suit, holding this unopened bottle of champagne like it was some phantom limb, my phone buzzed. First a text from Mason. Dude, seriously, you couldn't have just paid the check and talked to me afterwards? Then one from Mom. You embarrassed us in front of Brooke's entire family. Was that your goal? Revenge? And then a call from an unknown number. It was Brooke. Hi, she said, sounding a lot softer than usual. I know we don't really talk, but can I ask you something? Sure, I replied cautiously. Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the flowers, all of it? I paused for a moment. Yeah. Silence on the other end. Then she said, They told my dad you offered, that it was your idea. That stopped me cold. I never offered, I said slowly. They asked. I said yes. I didn't expect anything back, but I definitely didn't do it for show. Brooke sighed. Well, my dad's furious. He thought you volunteered as a kind gesture, but now he's saying he wouldn't have agreed to the restaurant if he knew it was paid for by someone they basically sidelined. I said nothing. Mason and your parents made him look foolish. Another pause. I'm not calling to get involved, she added quickly. Just thought you should know. I thanked her and hung up, but it was clear the fallout was just beginning. Over the following days, things escalated faster than I could have imagined, and not necessarily in the way my family probably anticipated. It started with the group chat, you know, the big family thread that usually buzzed during birthdays and holidays with recycled gifts, blurry food pics, and Happy Friday messages from my aunt. I hadn't seen or heard anything from it since that night, but suddenly it was alive again. Mom, Eli, we need to talk. Call me when... And that's just the beginning of what became a far bigger drama than any of us could have predicted. So here's the deal. You've got a minute, right? Mason, you seriously went and made a mess with Brooke's folks. You kinda owe us all a big fix on that. Dad, things are just spiraling out of control here. Just swallow your pride, say you're sorry, and let's get past this already. I left it alone, didn't reply. This was way more than just about that chair. It wasn't even really about the bill. It was the years of feeling like I was only ever the go-to in emergencies, the guy who had to drive everyone around, the one who was always there to pick up the check. And now that I finally said no, they were at a loss with how to handle me. Funny enough, or maybe not so funny, depending on how you see it, Brooke's dad wasn't the kind of guy who just brushes off feeling humiliated. Heard this from Trent, a buddy of Mason's who actually treats me decently. Mr. Whitaker apparently lost it the night after dinner. All those years paying for Brooke's fancy education, helping her kickstart her marketing gig, and orchestrating a picture-perfect engagement season, only to discover the groom's family lied about who footed the bill for the venue, treated their own flesh and blood like dirt, and stuck him with the bar tab after I wouldn't cough up the rest. Trent said at brunch the next day, Brooke's dad delivered a zinger like, "If this is how they treat their own, what's gonna happen when you marry into it?" Oof. Mason felt the impact of that one like he got hit by a freight train. Wedding plans went on ice. Brooke retreated to her condo for some mental clarity, and the Pinterest boards, poof, gone. My mom, attempting damage control, went the old school route and sent me an email, not a text, not a voicemail, an honest-to-goodness email. The subject line? Please. And the body was 5 paragraphs of sugar-infused manipulation, talking about how she never meant to hurt me, how she never knew I felt left out, and how it would mean the world for the family if I could just sit down with Mason and smooth things over. But did she say sorry? Nope, not once. Just a lot of, "we didn't know," and "you misunderstood," and "let's not let one silly night wreck our family bond." I paused at that last line. What bond were we talking about exactly? The one where I drove 3 hours on Christmas Eve to deliver gifts because Mason wasn't in the right headspace for shopping? Or maybe the bond where I canceled my Spain vacation a couple of years back because Dad needed surgery and funds were tight? Or the bond when I co-signed their loan for a second car without a second thought, the car Mason borrowed and never brought back? I let that email collect dust in my inbox, didn't bother replying. 2 days go by and Aunt Karen rings me up. That caught me off guard. She's not one for warm greetings, more the sharp businesswoman type with a knack for decorating and a whiff of judgment. Hadn't heard from her in over a year. "Eli," she goes, "I heard about dinner?" "Naturally," I said, lacing my words with sarcasm. "I'm not here to lecture," she snapped back. "Just want to say, finally, someone stirred the pot." That threw me for a loop. She sighed. "Look, I know your folks. Always sweeping things under the rug, acting like everything's peachy. They've leaned on you way too much for too long. And Mason, well, he's always managed to treat you like you're just a background character." I mumbled a thanks. "But why now?" I asked. "Simple," she replied dryly. "Now the Whitakers are involved, and your mom's in panic mode. She rang me up yesterday, wanted me to knock some sense into you." I raised an eyebrow. "What did you tell her?" "Told her you don't need sense. You need space. It's about time they learned to stand on their own 2 feet without using you as a crutch." That was the first time I felt like a family member actually saw me as a person, not a checkbook or a punching bag. Later that night, Mason hits me up again, his tone frantic. "Bro, Brooke's dad just canceled the wedding venue deposit, said our values don't line up. I need you to fix this now. Can you help?" "No, sorry, just handle it," I said. That's when it hit me. He still didn't get it, still thought I was some tool in his belt, there to relieve pressure or patch up problems. So I decided to fix things, but in my own way. That night, I logged into the joint account I had set up for him a year back during his Bless stint, the one he never closed and had his gym and Spotify subscriptions linked to. Moved the remaining money, not much, a couple thousand, into my new private account. Funds I'd left untouched because of this vague sense of brotherly duty. Then I called the bank and shut down the joint account entirely. Come morning, Mason called 4 times in a row. When I picked up, he was freaking out. "What did you do?" he blurted. "Nothing to say, bro. I shut it," I replied. "You can't. You just can't," he stammered. "Oh, but I can. You said I wasn't family, remember? If I'm not invited to the table, you can't spend my money." After a moment, he switched tactics. "Come on, man. You're jealous, admit it. You always hated I got all the attention. Now you're having a meltdown just because Brooke's dad took my side. I chuckled, actually laughed. Mason, mate, you really think he's on your side? Silence. Then I added, look, don't sweat it. You'll figure it out, you always do. Maybe ask Mom to open another line of credit for you or see if Brooke's dad can teach you to stand on your own 2 feet. And then I hung up. No clue what Mason did after, but a few hours later, my phone buzzed again this time. So there I was, staring at my inbox, and I saw an email from Brooke. The subject line read, I think we need to talk. You know, seeing something like that gave me pause. I mean, those words tend to signal something big is about to go down, and I wasn't quite sure if I was ready for whatever was coming. But curiosity got the better of me, and a part of me craved some closure, so I finally clicked open the email. The email was much longer than I thought it would be. It was polite and formal, but at the same time, it had this personal touch that made it clear Brooke was going through some stuff. She started by acknowledging how awkward that dinner had been. She admitted she was so caught up in making the night perfect that she didn't spot the full picture until everything came crashing down. She said she hadn't realized how I'd been treated until later, and she wasn't paying attention because, well, she was all about the planning. Apparently, her dad was livid, not just because there was some financial mess, but also because of the principle behind it. He apparently said something like, if they can publicly humiliate someone who financially and emotionally supported the entire night, I need to seriously reconsider who I'm marrying into. Pretty harsh, right? Brooke didn't hold back. She revealed that Mason had tried to brush everything off, calling it a minor misunderstanding, but that didn't last long. Her dad showed her some screenshots of the restaurant invoice, along with a detailed breakdown he got from the manager, and that's when the lies started to unravel. Mason had told her I insisted on footing the bill and skipped the main table because I was introverted, claiming I left early due to a supposed work emergency. But when Brooke took the step to call the restaurant and speak to the waiter herself, everything fell apart. Then, Brooke dropped the bombshell. I wasn't expecting it at all. She had called off the engagement the night before. I was a bit stunned, to be honest. She explained that it wasn't just the dinner that was the issue. The situation had ripped away the veil from behaviors she'd previously overlooked, like Mason's casual entitlement, his way of talking about me behind my back, and how he constantly minimized her concerns. He kept saying I was overreacting, but Brooke emphasized that I was the only one who handled everything with dignity. She wrapped up the email with a straightforward note, saying she wasn't writing to stir up more drama or pit herself against Mason. She just wanted to let me know she finally saw things clearly now, and she was sorry she hadn't seen it earlier. I sat there for ages, reading and rereading her words, not because I had doubts, but because I simply wasn't used to being believed like that. The following weeks were eerily quiet. The family group chat went dead. Mason made a couple of attempts to call, but after I ignored them, he gave up. Through the grapevine, I heard he had moved back in with her parents. Brooke returned the engagement ring. Her dad officially canceled the wedding with the venue and vendors. A few of Mason's old buddies, who had been somewhat riding his coattails to Brooke's connections, seemed to vanish from the scene entirely. I assumed that was the end of it, that everything would fade into silence. But then, on a random Sunday morning, there was a knock on my door. It was my mom. She was standing on my porch, bundled up in a long cardigan, holding a Tupperware container full of lasagna, as if it were some sort of peace offering. Her eyes were puffy, her makeup barely there. I didn't say a word, just cracked the door open and waited. "I brought you dinner," she said. I didn't make a move to take it. I just wanted to talk. No excuses. That caught me off guard. I let her in. She sat at my kitchen table, like back in the day when I was a kid. Same nervous fingers, same forced smile, but this time, there wasn't any passive aggressiveness. No, "You're just tired," or "He didn't mean it." She cleared her throat and said, "I owe you an apology." I crossed my arms, feeling guarded. Just one. Her face tensed up, but she nodded. Fair. Probably more than one. She took a deep breath. I didn't see it. Not because it wasn't obvious, but because I didn't want to. Mason's always been loud, occupying space, and you never asked for anything. You just handled things. You showed up, so we started treating you like a safety net, assuming you'd always be there. That's the thing about safety nets, I said. People only look at them when they're falling, not when they're climbing. Her lip quivered, and she glanced down at her hands. Your father and I, we were wrong. We let Mason get away with too much. We let him treat you like less. I stayed quiet. I know a lasagna and an apology won't fix everything, but I just wanted you to know I see it now, and I'm sorry. I watched her for a while. For the first time, she wasn't dodging the issue or defending Mason. She wasn't telling me to lower my voice or just get over it. She was sitting there, owning up to it. I nodded slowly. Thank you. We didn't talk much after that. She left the lasagna, and I walked her to the door. She didn't ask me to forgive Mason or to get in touch with him. She just said, "Take care of yourself," and drove away. Things didn't magically get better after that, but they didn't get worse either. My parents started sending individual texts instead of group ones. They were short, respectful. My mom invited me to Thanksgiving in a few months. Only if you feel up to it, she said. I haven't decided if I'll go. From what I hear, Mason is back to working part-time at some startup he can't stand. He's living rent-free, probably avoiding his reflection in mirrors. He hasn't reached out again, and I'm perfectly okay with that. As for me, I've started making more of my time. I finally took the postponed trip to Spain. I treated myself to a new set of noise-canceling headphones. I dove into books on boundaries, family dynamics, and quiet strength. I even started seeing a therapist. Not because I'm broken, but because I realized that healing doesn't come from waiting for someone else to apologize. It comes when you look at yourself and say, you deserved better, and you gave it to yourself. So no, I didn't foot the bill that night, but I finally cashed in years of silent debt. For the first time, I'm not sitting by the trash can. I'm at my own table. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoy hearing stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.